A $1,500 budget might barely cover the rent in most American cities, but abroad, it can completely change how you live. When black women start looking for a lower cost of living overseas, the numbers only tell half the story. Moving to a country with a small black population affects a lot more than the demographics. It can shape your ability to find proper hair care, date, build friendships, and avoid the exhaustion of always being the only black person in the room. A country can be incredibly safe, clean, and affordable, and still leave you feeling completely isolated. Now, saying a country lacks diversity doesn't automatically mean the people there are racist or hostile. Your day-to-day experience can vary depending on the city, the neighborhood, and yes, the privilege that may come with carrying an American passport. Today, we're counting down 10 countries for black women with small budgets. Which country would you choose on a $1,500 monthly budget? Number 10, Cambodia. When people think about moving to Southeast Asia, Thailand usually gets most of the attention. Cambodia tends to sit quietly next door, which may actually work in its favor. Thailand's visa rules have become more complicated for expats living on smaller budgets, while Cambodia still offers a much simpler entry point, especially in Siem Reap. In 2025, a foreigner could arrive in Cambodia, purchase an ordinary E-class visa at the airport for $35, and later extend it for 6 or 12 months through a local agency for around $300. You don't need to prove that you earn $3,000 every month. You don't need to display a giant bank balance and hope the immigration officer is impressed. That makes Cambodia one of the more accessible countries for a longer stay. Your money also goes a long way in Siem Reap. A furnished one-bedroom apartment in a secure building generally rents for around $250 to $400 a month. On a $1,200 monthly budget, that leaves plenty of room for high-speed internet, groceries, transportation, and the occasional one-hour massage for about $10. And yes, at that price, people do start treating massage appointments like basic maintenance. Cambodia doesn't have a historic Afro-descendant population, but a small and closely connected black expat community has developed over the last decade. Black women living in Siem Reap often say the attention they receive is usually based on curiosity rather than hostility or racial profiling. You may get stared at, you may also get questions that are a little too direct, but the interaction usually doesn't carry the same threat that staring can carry in other places. In a 2024 interview, a black American teacher living in Phnom Penh said her biggest adjustment wasn't discrimination. It was Cambodia's aggressive rainy season and the kind of heat that makes you question every clothing decision you made that morning. Cambodia also had a major United Nations administrative presence during the 1990s. Because of that history, people in the larger cities have been exposed to foreigners from many different backgrounds for decades. You'll still be recognized as a foreigner immediately. Nobody is mistaking you for a fifth-generation resident of Siem Reap, but being American and speaking English usually places you in a respected social category. The biggest concern is healthcare during a serious emergency. Most expats budget around $1,200 a year for regional health insurance that includes treatment or medical evacuation to neighboring Bangkok. That additional expense matters, especially when you're trying to live on a smaller monthly income. Still, for someone who can manage the tropical climate, the visa renewals, and the distance from the United States, Cambodia offers a very affordable way to rebuild your finances. Number 9. Albania, Europe is usually neither cheap nor simple when it comes to long-term immigration. Albania is the slightly confusing exception. Under an arrangement that remains active in 2026, US citizens can enter Albania and stay for up to 1 full year without applying for a visa. You don't need to prove that you receive a pension. You don't need to hire an immigration attorney, and you don't have to leave the country every 90 days just to collect another passport stamp. You can arrive, settle down, and remain legally for 12 months. For Europe, that's unusually generous. In Tirana, a modern one-bedroom apartment in a walkable neighborhood generally rents for around $400 to $550 a month. The city is also extremely safe by regional and international standards. Albania regularly reports violent crime levels below the European average and far below those of many major American cities. For a solo black woman, that physical safety can change the rhythm of daily life. Walking home after dinner doesn't have to involve checking behind you every 30 seconds or pretending to be on a phone call. However, Albania was isolated under a strict communist government until 1991, and its population remains highly homogeneous. You will stand out. And in smaller towns, black travelers have described the staring as intense, constant, and occasionally exhausting. Nobody enjoys becoming the unofficial local attraction while trying to buy toothpaste. Still, black women who remain in Albania longer often report that the mood changes once people realize they're American. The staring tends to turn into questions, invitations, expectations and a level of hospitality that can feel almost aggressive. At a 2023 expat networking event in Tirana, a Black American digital nomad explained that several local cafe owners began offering her free coffee because they wanted to practice English, which sounds lovely, until you realize you may now be teaching informal language classes every morning. In Albania's local social hierarchy, American nationality often carries significant weight. In many interactions, that passport privilege can override the first reaction to your skin color. The local minimum wage is around $430 a month, so someone bringing in $1,500 each month can maintain a firmly upper middle class standard of living. The larger challenge is social isolation. There isn't a large established Black community waiting for you in Tirana. You have to be comfortable entering a restaurant, grocery store, or neighborhood, and possibly being the only Black person there. For women who value safety, affordability, and easy legal access more than having a large diaspora community, Albania remains a strong option. Number 8. Ecuador, South America has attracted foreign retirees for years, but Ecuador combines low living costs with something several destinations on this list don't have: a visible Afro-descendant population. Most foreign residents choose either the capital, the coast, or the Andean city of Cuenca. Cuenca has become especially popular with people looking for a quieter lifestyle, cooler weather, and predictable monthly expenses. Across Ecuador, roughly 7.2% of the population identifies as Afro-Ecuadorian. The largest communities are concentrated in Esmeraldas province and the Chota Valley. Cuenca itself is mostly mestizo, but Blackness is not seen as something completely foreign within the country. Afro-Ecuadorians are visible in politics, sports, music, television, and public life. That doesn't mean racial inequality disappears. It does mean local people already understand Black identity as part of Ecuador's national story. Another practical advantage is the currency. Ecuador uses the US dollar. You don't have to calculate exchange rates every morning or watch part of your monthly income disappear because the local currency suddenly changed direction. In Cuenca, a comfortable 2-bedroom apartment near the historic center can rent for around $350 to $500 a month. That price leaves considerable room in a $1,200 or $1,500 budget for food, transportation, utilities, and healthcare. Ecuador's temporary resident visa requires proof of monthly income equal to 3 times the country's unified basic wage. In 2025, that income requirement was approximately $1,380 per month. That places the visa within reach for some retirees, pension recipients, and remote workers with modest but steady income. After receiving residency, foreigners can join Ecuador's IESS public healthcare system for roughly $80 to $90 a month. The system covers pre-existing conditions and doesn't use the same deductible structure familiar to many Americans. A Black American retiree who moved to Cuenca in 2022 publicly said her healthcare costs fell by nearly 85% compared with what she had been paying in Florida. That type of difference isn't a minor lifestyle upgrade. For someone living on a fixed income, it can determine whether the move works at all. Ecuador's Black expat community is also growing. In Cuenca, expats organize meetups and exchange advice about housing, residency paperwork, healthcare, hair care, and finding reliable local services. The main physical challenge is altitude. Cuenca sits more than 8,000 feet above sea level. The first few weeks can involve headaches, fatigue, and a sudden awareness that stairs have become unnecessarily personal. For someone who can adjust to the elevation, Ecuador offers mild weather, affordable healthcare, and a clear legal route toward residency. Number 7. Malaysia. Some people want quiet beaches and a slower pace. Other people want high-speed trains, large shopping centers, food delivery at midnight, and a hospital where the doctor speaks fluent English. For that second group, Kuala Lumpur deserves serious attention. Malaysia offers the kind of urban infrastructure that often costs 2 or 3 times more in other countries. English is also widely spoken as a second language. That makes everyday tasks such as visiting a doctor, signing a lease, opening a phone account, or explaining a plumbing problem much easier. A single woman can rent a modern studio apartment in a Kuala Lumpur high-rise for around $400 to $600 a month. Many of these buildings include security guards, gyms, shared work areas, and rooftop pools. The pool may not change your life, but it is a pleasant place to think about how much your old apartment used to cost. Americans receive a 90-day visa when they arrive, giving them enough time time to test the city before making a longer commitment. Remote workers may qualify for Malaysia's DE Rantau Digital Nomad Pass, which allows a stay of up to 2 years. However, applicants generally need to prove an income of $2,400 a month. That requirement places the program above the budget range used for this list. Some expats instead stay for the 90-day tourist period, travel elsewhere in the region, and later return. But immigration authorities have become stricter about repeated border runs, so that strategy shouldn't be treated as a permanent residency plan. Malaysia is a highly diverse country with large Malay, Chinese, and Indian populations. People are accustomed to living in a multi-ethnic society, especially in Kuala Lumpur. There is also a substantial black expat population made up of African students, professionals, entrepreneurs, and a growing number of black Americans. The difficult part is that not every black foreigner receives the same treatment. African migrants sometimes report discrimination from landlords, police, or immigration officials. Black Americans often say the interaction changes when their American nationality becomes clear. That is passport privilege, and it needs to be named honestly. The improved treatment is not always based on racial acceptance. Sometimes it's based on assumptions about income, education, or nationality. Healthcare is another major advantage. Malaysia has a large medical tourism industry, and a visit to an English-speaking specialist in a private hospital usually costs around $30 to $50 without insurance. Kuala Lumpur gives you modern transportation, strong internet, private healthcare, and big city convenience without requiring a New York or Chicago income. Number 6, Senegal. For some black Americans, moving abroad isn't only about lowering expenses, it's also about finding a stronger cultural connection to the African continent. Senegal offers one of the more stable and culturally established options in West Africa, with a long history of engaging with the African diaspora. Dakar is the center of business, politics, and culture. It is also expensive. In neighborhoods such as Almadies, monthly rent can easily move beyond $1,500, which defeats the entire purpose of this list. But outside central Dakar, the numbers become much more manageable. In coastal communities such as Sali, it's possible to rent a spacious home near the water for roughly $400 to $600 a month. Americans can enter Senegal without a visa and remain for up to 90 days. For longer stays, expats can apply for local identification and residency through the country's established administrative process. The paperwork may take patience. Government offices rarely feel inspired by your personal schedule, but the legal route is documented and used by other foreign residents. For many black women, the biggest difference in Senegal is psychological. In a 2024 documentary about the diaspora return movement, a black American designer living in Dakar said that, for the first time, she felt judged as an individual rather than being evaluated through her race. You are no longer moving through society as part of a small racial minority. The constant awareness of being the only black person in the room simply isn't there. That doesn't mean Senegal has no class divisions, colorism, gender expectations, or social tension. It does mean the basic racial dynamic is different from the one many black American women experience in predominantly white spaces. Senegal's government has also publicly encouraged stronger connections with Afro-descendant communities abroad. Past cultural officials have invited members of the diaspora to view Senegal as a second home. Black-owned businesses operate throughout Dakar, and African-American expats have built networks around real estate, tourism, fashion, food, and cultural education. The largest obstacle is language. French is the official language, while Wolof is the most widely spoken local language. Without French, basic tasks such as arranging internet service, negotiating rent, or dealing with an office can become difficult. Many new arrivals rely on a trusted local friend, translator, or paid fixer. So yes, learning at least some French is probably a better long-term strategy than pointing at your phone and hoping everyone remains patient. For women willing to learn the language and adjust to local systems, Senegal can offer a sense of cultural belonging that a spreadsheet cannot fully measure. Number 5, Belize. If you want a tropical climate, an Afro-Caribbean cultural presence, and no language barrier, Belize is one of the easiest options in Central America to understand. English is the country's official language. That means you can read a rental agreement, speak with a doctor, and handle immigration questions without translating every second sentence. The well-known tourist areas can be expensive. Ambergris Cay in particular is not designed around a $1,200 monthly budget, but southern communities in the Stan Creek district, including Hopkins and Dangriga, offer lower housing costs and a much stronger connection to local life. In these areas, a simple local-style rental usually costs around $450 to $600 a month. Hopkins and Dangriga are important centers of Garifuna culture. The Garifuna are an Afro-indigenous people who account for roughly 6% of Belize's population. For black women relocating to the country, that visible presence can reduce the feeling of standing out everywhere they go. You may still be identified as American. Your accent will probably handle that part within several seconds, but your appearance doesn't automatically make you seem unfamiliar. Belize also has a fairly straightforward residency program for older adults. The Qualified Retired Persons Program, commonly called the QRP, allows applicants aged 45 or older to qualify by proving a monthly income of $2,000. Participants can also import personal belongings without paying the usual taxes. For people earning less than that amount, another option is to enter on a 30-day tourist stamp and renew it every month at an immigration office. Each renewal costs around $100, and many expats have used this route for extended periods. It works, although visiting immigration every month may eventually become the least exciting recurring event on your calendar. In 2025, Belize continued to see growth in the number of African American retirees. Some created community groups to help new arrivals find housing and avoid common real estate mistakes. The main financial problem is the cost of imported products. Electronics, packaged American foods, beauty products, and other imported items often come with high taxes. A budget can fall apart quickly when someone tries to recreate an American shopping routine in a small Caribbean country. But if you eat local food, buy local produce, and keep your lifestyle relatively simple, Belize provides a familiar cultural rhythm within a short flight of the United States. Number 4, Vietnam. If affordability and physical safety sit at the top of your list, Da Nang, Vietnam is difficult to ignore. Da Nang is a coastal city with more than 1 million residents. It has long beaches, reliable internet, modern apartment buildings, cafes, gyms, and a growing foreign population. The cost of living remains extremely low compared with most American cities. A furnished one-bedroom apartment near the beach generally rents for around $300 to $450 a month. With careful spending, rent, utilities, local meals, transportation, and a gym membership can all fit within a monthly budget of less than $1,000. And no, that doesn't require eating instant noodles in a room with one plastic chair. Americans can apply online for a 90-day Vietnamese e-visa for $25. That makes the initial entry process relatively simple. The problem comes later, because Vietnam still doesn't offer a dedicated retirement visa or a standard digital nomad visa. Anyone hoping to stay long-term has to plan around the 90-day visa cycle or qualify through employment, business, or family connections. Still, safety is one of Da Nang's strongest advantages. Several black women living in the city have said publicly that they feel comfortable walking to a convenience store alone at 2 in the morning. For women coming from American cities where that would feel reckless, the difference is immediate. Vietnam has a low level of violent street crime compared with many countries. Petty theft can happen, especially in larger tourist areas, but the daily fear of random physical violence is much lower. The black expat community is also more organized than many first-time visitors expect. The Black in Vietnam Facebook group has more than 4,500 members sharing information about apartments, visas, jobs, hair products, salons, social events, and local services. Vietnam doesn't have an indigenous black population. However, the presence of black English teachers, business owners, travelers, and remote workers has become more common in cities such as Da Nang, Hanoi, and Ho Chi Minh City. You may receive curious looks, particularly from older residents or people in less tourist-heavy areas. Some people may ask for photographs or make direct comments about skin or hair. That can be uncomfortable. But black women living in Da Nang often say the attention rarely carries the same sense of physical danger or institutional profiling found elsewhere. The visa situation is the largest weakness. Leaving every few months is inconvenient, costs money, and makes long-term planning harder. But for someone prioritizing low expenses, strong infrastructure, and the ability to walk around without constant fear, Da Nang remains one of the most practical choices available. Number 3. Panama has spent years creating one of the clearest retirement systems in the Americas. Panama City is full of luxury apartments, international banks, and prices that can quickly remind you of Miami. But smaller cities such as David, Chitre, and Boquete offer a slower pace and much lower monthly expenses. In David, a comfortable 2-bedroom house can rent for around $450 to $600 a month. Panama's Pensionado Visa provides permanent residency to applicants who can prove a lifetime pension of at least $1,000 per month. That income requirement is one of the lowest among established retirement residency programs. The visa also gives residents access to legally required discounts. These include 25% off utility bills, 25% off restaurant meals, and discounts of roughly 10 to 20% on medical services. You're not just allowed to stay, you also receive discounts for doing normal things like eating dinner and turning on the lights. Panama has a deep connection to the African diaspora. Afro-Panamanians make up an estimated 15 to 20% of the national population. Their history includes both Afro-descendant communities dating to the colonial period and Caribbean workers who arrived to help construct the Panama Canal. As a result, black culture is visible throughout the country's music, food, religion, politics, and national identity. A black American retiree who moved to Cherokee Province in 2023 said she felt an immediate sense of cultural familiarity. She described being treated with a basic level of respect that felt normal rather than dependent on proving her status first. Panama also uses the US dollar as its paper currency. That reduces the risk of exchange rate changes cutting into a fixed monthly income. Private healthcare is well developed, especially in Panama City and larger regional centers. A consultation with a bilingual specialist typically costs around $40 to $60 without insurance. The biggest environmental drawbacks are the heat, humidity, and long rainy season. There will be rain, then more rain, and occasionally a brief pause that exists mainly to prepare the sky for additional rain. But for retirees who want permanent legal status, manageable healthcare costs, and an established Afro-descendant presence, Panama offers one of the clearest packages on this list. Number 2, Colombia. Colombia requires a more careful discussion. For a black woman looking for cultural connection and a very low cost of living, the country has serious advantages, but safety depends heavily on the city, the neighborhood, and your daily habits. For this list, the focus is Santiago de Cali. Cali is known internationally as the salsa capital of the world. It also has one of the largest Afro-descendant urban populations in South America, second only to Salvador, Brazil. Blackness is not treated as a recent foreign arrival in Cali. It is central to the city's history, food, music, dance, politics, and identity. The annual Petronio Alvarez Pacific Music Festival celebrates Afro-Colombian culture and attracts more than 100,000 people. That cultural visibility matters. A black American woman arriving in Cali isn't entering a place where local people have never seen black politicians, artists, professors, business owners, or families. The financial advantage is also significant. The Colombian peso remains weak against the US dollar, allowing American income to stretch much further. In a safe, middle-class neighborhood, a well-finished apartment generally rents for around $300 to $500 a month. Colombia's digital nomad visa requires applicants to prove monthly income of approximately $900. That is one of the lowest income requirements among formal digital nomad programs. However, Cali has real security concerns. It is not Da Nang. It is not Tirana. The city has major income inequality, and street crime remains a problem in certain areas. You shouldn't walk around displaying expensive jewelry. You shouldn't stand on a busy corner waving your phone around while completely ignoring your surroundings. And at night, black expat women commonly recommend using rideshare services rather than walking long distances alone. That isn't meant to create panic. It is simply the daily awareness required in many large Latin American cities. For women who understand those rules, the cultural benefit can be substantial. Black American women living in Colombia often describe being welcomed by Afro-Colombian communities interested in sharing the history and culture of the Pacific region. An American income also makes private insurance, house cleaning, restaurant meals, and an active social life affordable. For under $1,200 a month, it's possible to maintain a comfortable lifestyle that would cost much more in the United States. Cali requires street awareness and careful neighborhood selection, but it also offers a depth of black culture and social connection that few low-cost destinations can match. Number 1. Mexico. Mexico has been one of the main destinations for Americans moving abroad for decades. For Black women, however, the story has gradually shifted from short vacations to long-term relocation. Places such as Tulum and central Mexico City have become much more expensive. So for this ranking, the focus is Merida in the Yucatan Peninsula. Merida offers a combination of safety, affordability, healthcare, and community that is difficult to find in one place. In 2025, data from Mexico's National Institute of Statistics and Geography continued to place Merida among the safest major cities in North America. Its violent crime rate remains lower than that of many cities in the United States. A modern air-conditioned house in a quiet or gated neighborhood can rent for around $500 to $750 a month. That is not the absolute cheapest rent on this list, but it is still manageable within a $1,500 budget, especially for someone prioritizing safety and access to private healthcare. Mexico's residency rules are the biggest obstacle. Financial requirements for the temporary resident visa have increased. Depending on the consulate, applicants may need to prove monthly income of roughly $4,300. That is far above the budget range used in this video. There is an alternative qualification route based on savings. Applicants may qualify by showing an account balance of approximately $73,000 maintained for 12 months. Some retirees with modest monthly income but larger savings use that option. Without residency, American visitors may receive permission to stay for up to 180 days. That makes part-time living or extended seasonal stays relatively easy, although immigration officers aren't required to grant the full 180 days every time. The strongest reason Merida takes the #1 position is its organized Black expat community. Groups such as Brothas and Sistas of Merida have hundreds of active members. They organize regular gatherings, recommend doctors, share rental information, connect new arrivals with local services, and help people avoid feeling completely alone during the first few months. In a 2024 podcast interview, a Black woman who moved from Chicago to Merida said the existing community removed much of the isolation she expected to feel after leaving the United States. Mexico also officially recognizes its Afro-Mexican population. Most Afro-Mexican communities are concentrated in states such as Oaxaca and Guerrero rather than Yucatan. Still, that national recognition means Black history is formally part of the country's identity and education system. Merida has modern private hospitals, regular flights to the United States, and airfares that can fall below $250. You will need at least basic Spanish to live independently, so no, there isn't literally zero language barrier, but there is a large network of Black women who have already learned how to handle housing, healthcare, transportation, immigration, and daily life. Merida shows that living on a smaller budget doesn't automatically require giving up safety, community, or peace of mind. If you had to leave the United States within the next 6 months, which of these visa or residency processes would you actually be willing to start? Share your strategy in the comments. And if this breakdown helped you understand your options more clearly, subscribe to the channel for more detailed videos about building a life abroad. Safe travels, and we'll see you in the next one.